Hi, this is Henk, and welcome to another edition of the Skull Sessions. And today, my guest is Randy Overbeck. Is that correct?
Correct.
Dr. Randy Overbeck.
That's correct. Yep.
All right. All right. So, tell me what you got going on. Tell me what's new.
Okay. Well, listen, I'd like to introduce myself to your viewers. I am a retired educator who served kids for almost 4 decades. And for my second act, decided to mine many of those experiences into some great mystery novels. I'm actually on my sixth published novel right now. And they've done very well, have won 13 national awards, and two of them have become bestsellers. So I'm really proud of them. And I'm here to talk about my newest novel, a ghost story uh, called called it Red Shadows at Saugatuck. That's why it happens to be right here.
Okay.
And it is the fourth in a series that I call the Haunted Shores Mystery. Um, an early reviewer called them a cold case murder mystery wrapped in a ghost story, served with a side of romance set in a stunning resort location. And I've tried to keep that same theme through each one of the four episodes, trying something very different in terms of ghost
So,
story.
it's different than your usual writing material,
It's different than most ghost stories that people are familiar with.
but it's
So
also different than what you normally write.
no, well, yes, I spent a career, some 39 years writing education stuff, writing everything from journals and curriculum vitae to agendas and newsletters. So
But
all of
am I
that,
correct in saying this is not your first your first fiction story? Like, do
it's
you have other fiction novels out as well, or is this your first one?
no, this is my sixth fiction novel.
Okay, but the rest are not like ghosts or horror
No,
related.
four of them are ghost stories.
Oh, okay. Right.
One
Yeah,
is a
that's what I was
thriller,
asking. Yeah.
one is a thriller, and one is an atmospheric amateur sleuth mystery. So kind of different. And then I have a new one coming out that's a historical. So I'm a writer that has that's kind of all over the place.
Okay.
But I thought your readers would be or your viewers would be most interested in the newest book because it has several interesting elements that I thought that they would enjoy. So like you know,
Like
it
ghost
is,
settlements.
it is a ghost story. It is a mystery. It takes place in a beautiful town in Michigan on the shore of Lake Michigan called Saugatuck. It involves the same characters that were in the first three novels of the uh, Haunted Shores mysteries, Daryl and Aaron. Only in this case, it takes place 7 years later, and they have a little boy who's 5 years old. And both the father, Daryl, and now the boy, Leo, are able to see ghosts that others can't see. That's
Okay.
that's the central. So in each of my haunted shore mystery novels, Daryl, who is a high school history teacher, social studies teacher, and researcher, ends up kind of stumbling upon a murder that had happened a while ago. And this latest one, he has help because his son, his 5 year old son, actually finds a missing poster. You know, posters they put up for kids that are missing, and wants his dad to help try to find this missing native teen from the area, and that's what ignites the entire story. So the story is about their joining their family, the extended family up in Michigan, and at the same time trying to find out what happened to this girl that's been missing for 4 weeks.
Is it kind of along the vibe something like the Sixth Sense, where it's like kids are like seeing basically dead people?
It is, yeah, it is both the father, Daryl, and the son, Leo, end up as they are asking questions and looking for this girl that's gone missing, they end up seeing her briefly, although the young boy doesn't know the difference between seeing the ghost and seeing the real people next to her. So it's all part of having to navigate. And in each case, the ghost is trying to believe some breadcrumbs that helps them find out what really happened to her.
Okay, do you have a main character in the story where it's like one child, or it's like it's basically through his eyes and everything happens around him?
There are two central characters that populate all four of the novels, and Daryl, the high school social studies teacher, and then his wife, Erin, who is an OB nurse. So the story is told through those two POVs, about 60 or 70% through Daryl's POV, and then 30 or 40% through his wife's Erin's POV. Different action happens to them when they are separated, and we get to see Erin, the wife's perspective on what's going on, and the husband's, Daryl's perspective on what's going on. It makes for some very interesting storytelling.
Okay. Do you basically engage in first person, third person? Do you mix up? How do you expand on the story?
That's a very interesting question about trying to choose your perspective. Um, I all of my published novels are primarily published in close third person,
Okay.
which means that we are seeing things as the narrator, as the character is seeing, as the POV.
Like present tense, close first person.
No, it's not present tense, it's past tense.
Okay.
Present tense is kind of a fad right now, but it's not something
Do you
that
prefer?
it has not. I've tried it a couple of times. It doesn't seem to work for my storytelling style. So my
Okay.
style seems to fit really well with the close third person in past tense. Uh, I use past tense and then past perfect for doing the flashbacks that are part of the story in there.
I kind of feel like present tense and first person are better for shorter stories, but a longer story, you're kind of stuck in one person's mind for the entire story.
Yeah, and some authors can do a really nice job of with first person, and sometimes it comes off very well. But a lot of authors have moved from one. They started off as writing in first person, they moved to third person. Um, I have another. My very first novel has four POV characters, one in first person, the other three in close third person. So I've experimented in both. Um, the problem is that if you limited yourself and let having multiple storytellers, having multiple protagonists, you can often confuse the reader if one of them is in first person and the others are in third person. So to avoid that, I try to stay within third person. It
Well,
just
especially if they're similar characters, like if they're totally different, like one guy is an old guy and he talks like an old guy, and one's like a very young child. Yeah.
right. Yeah, that's correct. Um, so I think it works. My readers have been very responsive to it. The books are in the top 3 to 4% of book sales of all books. Like I said, two of the four books in the series hit bestsellers on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
That's
So
great. Yeah.
I think it's working. Um, and uh, I'll be honest that this newest book that just launched last month is the best of the group so far. I think the story's intriguing, the characters are fully developed, and it tells an important story. So one of the things that's a little different about my mysteries is that the mysteries I have the murder mystery tied to some serious social issue. So for example, in the first book of the series, Blood on the Chesapeake, it was about it was this The story was a lynching that had occurred in this location on the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay back in the 60s, even though the story takes place in the 90s. And then the second book, Crimson at Cape May, the murder ends up being connected to a human trafficking ring. Well, in this book, which takes place in 2007 in this town of Saugatuck, is the murder ends up being tied to what we now call MMIW, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. It's an organization that's tried to make the population aware of the abuses, the rapes, the murders, the kidnapping that's going on with at an astounding rate with Native women, girls and women, Native females.
Do you
And
think that was more a thing before they had like more like computer enabled like tracking services and all sorts of forensic files, that sort of stuff? Do you
well,
think it was like easier to get away with back in the day so more people did it?
My understanding from my research for the book that this is a problem that the Native community has evidence of it having gone on for decades, maybe more than a century, that they've had this same problem that just nobody really paid attention to the problem because these are just Redskins, they're just Indian girls. Um,
Right,
but
I'm just asking, was it more prevalent in the past than it is in in the current?
no, I don't think so. I think what one of the problems that Native victims have that victims in other situations don't have is there's lots of cross jurisdiction issues.
Oh yeah, because technically a lot of reservations are like their own country.
That's exactly right. And there's lots of history of a either resistance to collaboration or just plain difficulty collaborating between the agencies outside the reservation and the agencies inside. There's a lot of distrust between the two. So there's no one of the main problems is
Gee, I
there's
wonder why. It's not like the police ever screw up or anything.
yeah, right. And I think and so I think there have been places in the US where that collaboration is much better, but there's a lot of distrust on both sides, on from white side and from the native side. So what that means is lots of girls fall through the cracks. So one group might know about them, but they don't communicate them to the other group.
Right.
And so I think even with all the technology that we have now, that technology is not being come to bear for these victims. So and that's just so in my story, my murder victim happens to be one of these missing and murdered Indigenous women. Daryl, my protagonist, my teacher, who's an amateur sleuth, doesn't really know anything about this problem. He's just a white guy, just like me. And he kind of
I'd
stumbles
be
on,
curious, like if you look at some of the stuff that happened in like the old like pre-bellum South, like the Sunset Towns and like all sorts of like horrible stuff. Was there a version of that that happened up north to the natives?
yes, very, very much similar. A lot of it has to do the same problems that existed in the South, which mainly can be reduced to the fact that one group of people didn't view this other group as being equal. They didn't view them as people a lot of
Right.
times.
Well, I know people like you had a lot of people that view like the indigenous people of any ethnicity is that. So
Right.
yeah, no, you had it all across the board, north and south. But I'm just wondering if like the same like restrictions that they imposed down south were also present up north.
There's similar restrictions. I'm not sure if the word I don't think same is the correct, but the real I mean, just like just like African Americans, Native Americans have had they have had this label from when white settlers came over that they were savages, that they were beneath white people. So going back 150, 200 years ago, that's kind of been bred into the population that natives are drunks, they have all these pejorative references to them. And from what I was able to find in my research is that that led to this victimization of women, of girls, at an accelerated rate that never really got prosecuted.
Well,
Well,
I think a lot of those people that pulled that off, felt like they had to justify these horrible atrocities. Like, how
right.
else can you justify it? Oh, well, we'll make up some religious code and like pretend like it's that. But all right, so let's get back to your books for a minute. So we know how you write them. Like, roughly how long would they be, and are they all like kind of connected to the same continuity?
They are so they are the four haunted shore mysteries, of which this one is the newest one. They are all a series with the same primary characters, Daryl and Aaron, and they happen over a relatively short period of time. 1998 is the first book, 1999 is the second book, 2000 is the third book, and I jumped to 2007 because I wanted this little boy, their son, to be as part of the story. So
Some of
they
my listeners, like, they don't watch the video feed. So, can you tell me the name of each book and roughly like a quick synopsis?
sure. In fact, I can do better than that. I can show you a picture of the story. All right. So book number one in the series is called Blood on the Chesapeake.
Okay.
In this book, we meet Daryl, who is a Midwesterner like me. He's actually from Michigan, but he's a Midwesterner. He gets dumped at the altar and is just looking for a new job. He didn't really care where the job was. He just wanted to go someplace else. And he ends up finding this perfect job on the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland
Okay.
and coaching basketball and football and teaching his subjects.
Is it pretty much the present time frame?
1998.
Okay.
When he gets there, though, he finds out that this little small, tiny athletic office that he inherited is haunted by this teenager who had been lynched some 30 some years earlier in the same space.
Okay.
That's the first story, and he has to find out who was behind the lynching some 34 years earlier. Okay, so that's book
Uh,
one.
One thing I'd be curious about, like, have you seen the movie The Changeling? Not the new one with Angelina Jolie, but the old one. It's like I forget who the actor is, but it's like a very good actor, and it's like basically he's in a house and he finds out there's like a kid, like a ghost of a kid.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie?
I think I have, but it's been a long time. But yes,
Well, I remember it's a very good movie. I just kind of wondering if it
yes,
was a similar vibe,
yeah.
like all this weird stuff starts happening, and then it kind of like one person starts to do a more thorough investigation and finds out the truth.
Yes, that's pretty much the only difference is one of the things that's different about my novels is that I don't have the ghosts do anything extraordinary. So what in order to put all this together, I went and did a lot of research on ghosts, trying to separate the fiction from the reality. So I met with paranormal investigators. I've been on plenty of ghost stories. I've talked with lots of people
I know a
who,
lot of that's like very hard to decipher because like there are all sorts of wild claims. It's kind of hard to verify any of them.
well, here's what I found out, Dan, that there really isn't any evidence of this, of what's the kind of ghost that Stephen King creates.
Right.
That's and then almost all of the ghost stories are either what I call the Stephen King version, or the other side is Casper the Friendly Ghost, where the ghost whispers in your ear and tells you. Okay,
Right.
none of that is true. None of that there's any evidence of. So what I tried to do is I tried to have my ghosts interact with human beings in the way that paranormal investigators have documented some interactions occur. So there are things that happen to Daryl from the ghosts.
Would you say real quick, would you say that in your research what you've uncovered, would you say that it's like more along the lines of like say poltergeist or the sixth sense?
more like Sixth Sense than
Okay.
Poltergeist. There's not much evidence. I mean, I've seen both those movies. Poltergeist again is an evil ghost that's trying to
Right.
take people. Okay, I did not find.
Indian burial ground is a
Uh,
basis, and yeah, all sorts of like scary stuff.
I've not found any evidence of that. Now, I think I found plenty of evidence of ghosts existing in burial grounds. The difference is they don't do evil things to human beings. That's not what ghosts do. So my what I was trying to get back to is my ghosts in the book do the kind of things that paranormal investigators have found that they do. They leave footprints, they leave messages, they move things, stuff like that. That we have evidence of actually happening. Um, so okay, so that's the first book. And the second book, he loses his job and he has to find a way to support himself. So he goes to a town that's close by. That's Cape May, which is 3 hours away. And he
Okay.
takes a job as a summer football camp coach. So, and while he's there, he ends up being haunted by a haunted bride, a woman that had been murdered. And as that woman is trying to get him to do something, he ends up finding out that the woman's what her death was connected to a human trafficking ring. And
Okay.
I chose that because this is in New Jersey. I don't know where you are.
New
Uh,
York.
okay, well, not too far then.
Yeah.
So one of my research uncovered is that New Jersey is within 30 miles of the largest human trafficking ring in the United States.
Wow.
So human trafficking travels the way all other freight does. It travels via interstate highway. And if you think about where New Jersey Turnpike, Pennsylvania Turnpike, I-95, that's one of the busiest interstate travel routes in the United States. So it seemed like a perfect fit between the murder and this issue of human trafficking. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. This is the first book was 98. This is summer of 99. This is the third book is Scarlet at Crystal River. This takes place in December of 99, the beginning of 2000. In the first book, Daryl and Aaron meet. In the second book, they fall in love. In the third book, they're on their honeymoon. In this case, on their honeymoon, they end up being haunted by the ghost of two murdered children, 5 and 6-year-old children, immigrant
Okay.
children. And he has to find out, he ends up learning about migrant workers, learning about where these migrant workers come. And again, the migrant workers are about this Scarlet Crystal River is on the Gulf Coast, about an hour north of Tampa, where the migrant workers are about an hour away in more central Florida. It's a very productive fruit growing area in
It
that.
sounds like you did kind of a deep dive into the research for each one of the like
Yeah.
everything from the syndicates to like the horrible racism to like local traditions and cultures and whatever. Like I think that's great. Like I love when people do that stuff, but that means you also kind of like you learn the vibe of everything as it goes along.
I didn't hear the last part. I learned the what?
You learn the vibe, like you experience the
Yeah.
situation, like it's more like realistic, more present.
Yeah. And one of my goals was to kind of like introduce my readers to these issues. Like as an example, I didn't know hardly anything about human trafficking until I did the research for the second book. I didn't know, for example, that every 5 minutes there's a girl in the United States being abducted in human trafficking today.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah,
There are 120,000 girls disappeared last year.
yeah,
There are
it's
boys too.
insane. Yeah,
Problem is much worse for girls than it is for guys. But anyway, so I want as I was doing my research and learning these remarkable, I said, well, that needs to be part of the story. So how I deal with that is Daryl, when he literally stumbles into finding out, he's a fish out of water. He doesn't know anything about that either. So he goes and starts learning about, or sometimes somebody tells him about the racism part or the human trafficking part or the life of a migrant worker. He actually has in that third book, there's a third character, Luis, who is helping him navigate the world of migrant workers, gets him into a camp.
It's probably way more pernicious in like immigrant cultures and like native cultures because it's like harder for them to report to the authorities and they don't trust the authorities.
Right, that's exactly the problem. And the authorities in the migrant community even worse because they're afraid to say anything. They think they'll be deported.
Right.
That's another whole layer of an issue that's a problem.
But
So that
I know like maybe it's a little bit less now, but I know there are a lot of people that like so if you were like black or Native American or whatever, you report it wasn't taken quite as seriously.
wasn't well, and they would very likely be doubted,
Yeah,
especially if the perpetrator was white.
right.
If the perpetrator
Well,
was
there's that too. Yeah.
African American, or if the perpetrator was Native American, they were more likely to be hunted, arrested, and prosecuted. But if they were white, they were likely not, they would believe the white person's argument over the victim very often.
All the time. Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah.
It depends. I mean, it's there are exceptions to that, but and it is a little better now, especially with the Native American in in the fourth book, because because the community in general is becoming more aware, and it isn't a U.S. problem. I found that the problem is just as bad in Canada as it is in America.
Yeah. I believe
Native American.
shitty people are shitty people. Like you said.
Well, and the Native American problem, one of the issues is that many of those abductions, the rapes and the kidnapping and stuff are done by truckers. Now, I'm not besmirching truckers. There's lots of wonderful and dedicated guys who drive trucks and get us everything that we are so used to be able to having. But the problem is that because
You're
the
just saying numbers wise it happens.
And the problem is they're hard to track because they don't live in the area. It's not like
Right.
it isn't even like in the South when the African Americans were victimized by their white neighbors, at least there was a place to be able to do the investigation. Many cases for the women, for the Native women, the guy who did it was there 3 days ago, but he's in
Long
Nevada.
gone. Yeah.
He's and they don't have any details on it. So that's one of the problems that they encounter. It is not the one I didn't choose to highlight that particular part in this story because this one has more to do with what happens on the water.
Okay.
Because I happen to like doing scenes that involve sailing ships and ships in general because that's one of my buttons. That's one of the things I love.
Okay.
So in
Yeah,
this,
I love I do a lot of illustrations for books and magazines. I love to draw ships, especially like the old sailing ships with the sails and everything.
yeah, you can see the cover on this one. So I worked hard with the cover artist who put this together. So I got my hand over the ship. So this is and actually it's a sailing yacht.
I'll put all your books on the screen so people can see them in full
So
resolution.
this is it's a sail in the story. There are a couple of sailing yacht. Well, there are three. I think three sailing yachts there involved as part of the story. So it makes
Okay.
it a very interesting setting for where the action is taking place. So it was great fun to research. It was great to and I give shout out. So one of the things that I did, I'm an old white guy, so I really don't have any innate knowledge about the conditions and area about Native women. So in order to make sure I got this right, I actually used the tribe that's there. So near Saugatuck, 45 minutes away, there's a reservation of a group of tribes of Chinooks, but they go by the name of the Gun Lake tribe. If people live in that area, they would know about them because there's a Gun Lake casino.
Right.
The Gun Lake Casino wasn't built until after the time my book is set in. So I don't have that as part of the story. But anyway, I went to the elders in the Gun Lake tribe as I was doing my initial research and asked for their help.
Oh, it's
So,
awesome. Yeah.
so they gave me, things I should put in, things I needed to avoid. And then to make sure that I got all that right, when the manuscript was finished, completed, I sent them copies of the manuscript with highlighting, here's where the native parts of the story are in.
So they could almost be beta readers and like,
Yeah, and
yeah.
that's what, and I said, please let me know where I strayed in any place. I do that with the local. So, for example, every one of these, since I'm not from the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay or Cape May or Crystal River or Saugatuck, what I do, because I spend a couple of years doing this research, but I end up meeting with local people. Usually, it's a librarian, it's a Chamber of Commerce person, or in Saugatuck, it was the person head of the Visitors Bureau, and they end up kind of helping me navigate the town and knowing who to see and stuff like that. And then I gave her name, in this case, her name was Lisa Mize. She's recognized in the acknowledgments. She then read the book as well when it was finished, and then helped me correct. There was some geography that I had gotten wrong and stuff like that. And she made sure that all of that was exactly as it's represented in the town. So,
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize how little they know. Like my late wife, she was an immigrant from Colombia. So, I mean, she pointed out stuff to me that I never thought of. Like,
yeah,
I'd be like, oh, yeah, well, I'm going to add this, or I'm going to include this. She's like, wait a minute, and then you find like all the details about it. And then you're like, oh, it's totally different than I thought.
right, exactly. That's what I've said every time. And part of it is I'm a big researcher. I was a researcher. That was one of my primary jobs in my allergies are bugging. Primary jobs in school when I was when I was running school districts. So I just transferred those skills here, and I love doing the research. I love, I get like the in Crystal River in this book. One of the wonderful things about this town, it's the only place in America you could swim with manatees.
Yeah,
So I
it's
swim with
awesome.
manatees
Yeah,
to be able to include that in the story to see what that was like.
right,
In the first book, which takes place on the Chesapeake Bay, it takes much of the story takes place on the bay.
right.
I was not a sailor. I had never sailed on a bay, so I had to get lessons on how to do that.
Did you go to the bay to like kind of get a feel for it?
Oh, oh yeah, we probably spent 6 years at this location
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
in order for me to gather enough information to put this book together.
Like I did a story on the Loch Ness, but I was like, I have to go there in person to write about it. So I did, and it provides so much. It's like now I know what the Highlands look like. I know what the like everything, the whole atmosphere.
Yeah, did you learn when you were doing the stuff on Loch Ness that there's another one reported in Alaska?
No, I did not. I know that Loch is like their version of lake. It's
Yes.
like their word for lake. And I know there's like a ruined castle on the side of Loch Ness and all that. And unfortunately, I didn't see the monster,
Yeah.
but I get lots of local lore. And we had a local bus driver, like an old lady, that she just narrated the entire story of basically about how much they hate the British, all the way from Edinburgh, which is where I was, to Loch Ness.
I bet that was fun, just learning
Yeah.
that.
That was great. Yeah.
Yeah, and each of these towns, I have needed a local to help me navigate, you know, because one of the things I try to do is I try to be sensitive to the sensitivities of the people in each of these towns.
Right.
I'm creating a murder mystery, fiction, so I don't want it to besmirch the town's name. So I'm very careful about how I do that. So nobody comes out and says, well, Saugatuck is a town of murders.
Uh,
That's kind of the opposite of what I'm trying to go for. So
yeah. Well, hopefully that'll decrease it, but there are some people that are just like they jump on everything.
yeah,
So like you can do anything, right? But I think they just like to be the person that calls you out about something, even if it's totally made up, than them actually, providing light on something that needs to be like illuminated. But that's another topic. All right. So what's the best way that people can get a hold of you, look at your stuff, like throw money at you, stuff like that?
Amen, brother. The easiest way is have them simply check out my website, which is just authorrandyoverbeck.com.
Okay.
In there, there's a one click on every book that's there. There's one click takes you to any place you want to buy, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple, any place you want to buy books. There's one click.
Everywhere fine books is sold.
You can get it there. I also have a blog and I do a podcast. Not near as good as your podcast, but this is a very different
Okay.
podcast. Mine's only audio, but it's called Great Stories About Great Storytellers. Where I reveal the backstories of famous authors, directors, and poets that people know, but I tell them the stuff they don't know about them.
Right.
So I told him one of mine tells the backstory of how John Grisham got started. Another one tells the story of a famous novelist who
That's great. That's very interesting. What's the podcast name?
podcast name is Great Stories About Great Storytellers. And
Awesome. So
there's a
that's
link
the
to
title of
that.
it. Great stories by great storytellers. What's it available on?
It's available in any place you get podcasts,
Like on
iHeartRadio, Spotify,
Spotify,
yep,
Apple
all those.
Podcasts.
Yep. And if they're not a regular podcast listener, they can simply go to the website and there's a tab on there that all of the episodes are on there. We do one a month. In fact, I'm getting ready to drop one tomorrow, no, Wednesday of this week, the next one. So whatever kind of author that people or poet or director that people like, I did Alfred Hitchcock, give the background behind Alfred Hitchcock as an example. I've got scary
Did you
author.
do Poe?
Edgar Allan Poe is on there, of course.
No, awesome. Yeah.
Uh, uh, I have both classic authors and
Like Mary Shelley.
Mary Shelley was my October.
Oh,
Oh,
awesome.
right
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
So all the best. Everyone's got to check out his podcast because there's some stuff that I guarantee you don't know.
And they're all short. So we're talking 12-minute listens, 13-minute listens. So they'll enjoy that. So all of that's on my website, authorrandyoverbeck.com.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you very much for doing this podcast. I know that the last one got screwed up.
Yep.
I'll take responsibility for that. But do you have anything else you want to throw out to the social sphere?
No, I really appreciate you having me, Dan. It's great to talk to your fans, and I hope a couple of them, if they're interested in a great read, will check out my books. Thanks for having me
In your podcast.
and my podcast.
I can't
Right?
wait to listen to that. So, all right. Well, thanks, man.